Hello. We are continuing with our discussion of Sirus, sterilization, and we ended last time with an occurrence between Yehudis, the wife of Rabbi Chiya, and Rabbi Chiya, where she disguised herself and asked Rabbi Chiya whether women were commanded in the midst of Pri, being fruitful and multiplying, and he said no, and then she drank a sterilization potion. And he said, I wish I'd had one more set of twins, or one more womb full of children. And so that shows, compared to the other things we looked at earlier, that there's a clear difference between the sterilization of men and women. So I'd like to look at this first at the Rambam, Shulchan Aruch, and other authorities to see how this plays out. The Rambam says, Asur להפסיד איברי זרע. It is prohibited to destroy, damage the sexual organs, באדם, whether it be of a man, בבהמה, ועוף, whether it's of a domesticated animal, a wild animal, a bird, אחד טמאים ואחד טהורים, whether they are kosher or not kosher, Israel, בחוצה, לארץ, whether it's in Israel or abroad. שנאמר ובארצכם תעשו, even though the pasuk in the Torah that we learn the prohibition of sterilization from says, in your land you will not do this. השמועה למדו, שדבר נוהג בכל מקום. We have learned by tradition, oral tradition going back to Moshe Rabbeinu, that this prohibition applies every place, not only in Israel. Ya'ase, and when it says you will not do this in Israel, what does it mean? Begufan, begufan, whether you do it to yourself or whether you do it to someone else, whether you have it done to you. V'kol ha'masaris loka min Torah, and anyone who performs a sterilization receives lashes from the Torah. Makome, in any place. Ve'afilu misaris acher misaris loka. Even if the sexual organs were damaged in one way and then damaged in another way, or piercing and then followed by castration, something like this, even if the first one rendered the person sterile, the second one would nonetheless be prohibited and also receive lashes. So the next halach, the Rambam says, Ketzad, how does this work? And he gives a whole series of various things that can be done to damage the testicles and penis. And then at the end he says, V'amasaris in the keva, but the one that sterilizes a woman, a female, Ba'adam, b'shar minim, whether it's of a human or any other species, pater, is exempt. Now, pater is an interesting word. In Hilchos Shabbos, we have three categories. We have chayiv, that it would create a death penalty for violation. We have pater, which means pater abal asar, that it's exempt from punishment, but it's nonetheless prohibited. And we have mutter, and we have something that's allowed in the first instance to do. Every place else, in general, pater means there's no punishment and it's permitted to do. But here he's playing it off in a different way, as we'll see in a minute. And the Rambam in the next halacha says, Hamashke ikrin la'adam or l'shar minim, someone that feeds a sterilization potion to a man or to any other species, k'dei l'sarso, in order to sterilize them, if the intent is something else and is medicinal, and the side effect is sterilization, it would not be this halacha. Harizei asar, it is prohibited, vein lokin alav, but there's no lashes for it. The isha muteris lishtos ikrin, but the woman is permitted to drink such a formula, such a medicine, k'dei l'sarsa, in order to sterilize herself, ad shelo teled, so that she does not give birth. Now, the Shulchan Aruch on this says, Asur להפסיד איברי hazera, it is prohibited to damage, to destroy the male sexual organs, באדם, בבהמה, ועוף, whether it be from a man a domesticated animal, a wild animal, echad Tmאים ואחד טהורים, whether they be a kosher animal or non-kosher animal, בארץ, Israel, בחוצה, לארץ, whether it be in the land of Israel or abroad, essentially the same language as the Rambam. V'kol ha'masaris loka min haTorah b'kol makom, anyone that performs the sterilization receives lashes from the Torah. And then at the end of the paragraph, after going through details, he says, "Hamasaris in the keva, the one that sterilizes a female, bein ba'adam bein b'shar minim, whether it's a man or any other species, pater aval aser, it is exempt, but there is no punishment, but it is prohibited." Now, the Taz, one of the major commentaries on the entire Shulchan Aruch, writes on Hamasaris in the keva, the one that sterilizes surgically a female, pater, is exempt. Kasav Magid Mishnah. He starts by quoting the Magid Mishnah, commentary on the Rambam, one of the early commentaries on the Rambam. Miditnan ein Sirus b'nekevos, from the fact that we learned in the Tanaic source in the Mishnah that there is no prohibition, there is no sterilization with female. V'lo amar muter l'saris in the keva, but it doesn't say it's permitted to sterilize the female. Shmamina chiyuv hudaleka, that we hear from here that there is no obligation, there would be no lashes or having to bring a sacrifice in the temple. Aval isur eka, but nonetheless there is a prohibition in this. And mishum hachi kasav Ramban, and therefore the Ramban wrote mamish kan lashon potter. He wrote here that it is potter. I assume the Taz meant to write the Ramban. The Magid Mishnah was commenting on the Ramban, on the Rambam, in the Mishnah Torah, and that it's a printer's mistake that it says the Ramban. And the Taz adds this: "V'lo nira ledaktek ze migemara." It does not appear to me that you can make this exacting understanding from the Gemara. Devade gam lashon ein Sirus b'nekeva more al heter. When it says there is no sterilization of females, the implication is it's permitted. Kamo lashon mutter, just like when it says something is permitted. Ela hatam keven shemisaris ota al yidei maseh. But since we're talking about some type of physical surgical procedure out of which is considered an action as opposed to drinking something which would not be considered an action, kagon haka'a or biata, like striking her. They didn't think of surgery in those days. Internal surgery was not something that they considered as a normal thing, or kicking her, or shadvarim hagorim Sirus, or any other thing that would cause her to be sterilized. Uba al yidei maseh shelo, and it comes through his action. Ein lomar ba heter, you can't say that such an action is permitted. Te'afilu bebehema asur mishum tsar balei chaim, below isur Sirus. Even with an animal, we'd say this is prohibited because you're not allowed to cause them pain, even if we're not talking about sterilizing them or not. Amai mutter lashkos in kevat ikrin. So why would it be? He says that it's mutter, it is permitted to feed the female this medicine that would sterilize her, kamoshiksuv sif sha'achar zeh, like it says in the next paragraph in the Shulchan Aruch, which we'll read in a second. Ela kapirush Rashi, it must be like Rashi explains. V'had de pater b'nekeva afilu im ba al yidei maseh shelo. When it says it's exempt in the female, even if it's through something that I specifically go out and do, nira hatam de b'nekeva ein Shayach Sirus behefsed evrei zera mamish she'eno b'chutz kamo hazachar. It appears that the reason why there is no prohibition of sterilization of the female is because her reproductive organs are inside of her body as opposed to outside of the body as they are in the male. Alken, therefore, lo have hasirus b'yadai mamish. Whatever we do isn't tangible in the same way as it is with the male. Afilu im ba al yedei maseh shelo. Even if it's done through an action of my own. Now, the next sif in the Shulchan Aruch is Hamashke koshel ikrin la'adam, someone that drinks this formula to a male to sterilize him, or l'shar balei chaim kedei l'sarso, or to any other animal, any other living being, in order to sterilize them, haray ze yasser. It is prohibited, ve'ein lo kinala, but you do not lash them because it's a lav she'ein bo ma'aseh, and a negative prohibition that doesn't have an action with it, and therefore there are no lashes. V'yishem musteresh listos ikrin kedei l'sarsa ad shlo teled, but a female is allowed to drink such a formula in order to sterilize her so that she will not give birth. So, we have a machlokas. Then there are other authorities that hold like the Taz. There are other authorities that hold like the Shulchan Aruch. This is, to a certain extent, an ongoing debate. And there is a principle called kimli. A person, when there is a debate among the authorities, a person has the right to say, I hold like this one. Now, if after the debate was up to the time of the Shulchan Aruch, but after the time of the Shulchan Aruch, everyone agreed to the psak of the Shulchan Aruch, we say you cannot dig up an earlier source to say, I hold like this earlier source. However, if even after the time of the Shulchan Aruch there are different authorities debating it, a person has the right to say kimli. So the Taz is saying that it is with a surgical sterilization of a female could be permitted. I mean, obviously one would have to want it. You couldn't sterilize someone against their will. I wouldn't begin to suggest that at all. However, if she would want such a thing, then the Taz is saying there is reason to permit it, as long as it's not something like we're doing just something like beating her. I mean, a surgical procedure that was done under anesthesia with her consent. The Taz would allow such a thing. So it might be that a woman could say, I hold like the Taz and I want this procedure done. I have concluded an outline of the implications of sterilization. And next time, I don't really have sources for it, but from the sources we've looked at, we can make some implications for where we started and what started the questions that led me to do all these things about a sex change operation, whether it might, what is the halachic approach to such a thing in men and in women, and the approach will be different. And are there meta-halachic considerations about this as well? And then the last thing that would have to be discussed is if someone has gone through such a procedure, what should be our approach to such a person? The last one is perhaps the hardest to consider, and I had a shaila on that many years ago that perhaps we'll also have time to discuss. Everyone should have a wonderful day.